Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, college football fans across the nation and around the world. This is Tim May with the Tim May Show featuring Clay Hall. Boy, 2 straight Tim May shows featuring Clay Hall, with Clay Hall being live in the studio, ladies and gentlemen. Mark that down in your calendar. Put a little X mark right there. It has happened because Clay's been out and about on assignment, doing all kinds of different things. But we persevered. But Clay, once again, it's Ohio State, the number 1 team in the country, going on the road to fairly recognizable confines. The Camp Randall Stadium, where they were a couple of years ago, and Ohio State took care of business on the road that night. This is a mid-afternoon game, kind of like that sandwich meat that no one wanted for their big sandwich this week, so they put it in the middle. That I know that doesn't totally rhyme with what a how a sandwich is constructed, but I think it's covered by the lettuce and tomato more than the meat of the game. But I mean, Ohio State pretty strong favorite in this game. Number 1, number 2,
25,
playing at a Wisconsin team that got beat 37-0 at home a week ago. The number 1 team in the country, Ohio State, is rolling in with an efficient offense for the most part and a stifling defense, as opposed to the team that Wisconsin hosted a week ago that has a so-so offense but a really good defense. And Wisconsin, I don't even know if they came close to scoring. But my point is, in this weekend, it is not the premier game in the country by any stretch, right?
No, and tough times in Madison for Luke Fickell, and I'm not here to judge it from 600 miles away, but tough row to hoe. I mean, oh my.
We get into that a little bit, in our pre-recorded little segment. When we were standing in the Woody Hayes Athletic Center earlier this week. But yeah, it is tough, and like you said, some developments that have come, like relay some of that you've gleaned in terms of some media reports and things like that about Luke Fickell.
Well, yeah, just recently, very, very new was a quote apparently from an athletic director or a chancellor. It said Luke Fickell will be given every chance to save his job, as he put it. And yet the other quote that emanates from this report was the fact that it said, but it's very hard to see light at the end of the tunnel. And that person is speaking of a schedule after Ohio State. The Badgers at Oregon, home to Washington, at Indiana, home to Illinois, and at their second rival, Minnesota, to close it out. So very difficult. He's been beset by unbelievable quarterback injuries and many other issues. But yeah, it's going to be tough to pull out of this thing, but I wish Luke well.
Yeah, and just a few years ago, he was the hottest name going or one of the hot names going in terms of possibly leaving Cincinnati and going to for another term, a bigger program, a more of a blue blood kind of program. And he gave up the idea of going to Notre Dame. Notre Dame actually didn't want to wait, even though Luke and his Cincinnati team had earned a really valuable bowl berth. They didn't want to wait on him, and they ended up elevating Marcus Freeman from defense coordinator, where he'd been defense coordinator at Notre Dame for just 1 year under Brian Kelly. Brian Kelly left to go to LSU, and Notre Dame elevates Marcus Freeman, who had been Luke's defensive coordinator,
right?
Assistant coach, basically the first guy he hired, if I remember correctly, at Cincinnati. And now here's Luke. And, everybody was thinking, well, is Ryan Day going to go to the NFL? What's Ryan Day going to do? And Luke looked like he was next in line maybe to get a shot at the Ohio State job. But, Ryan Day's been pretty adamant about the fact he wants to get the job done here and then some. I'm talking about at Ohio State. And so then you end up in that carousel of you take the Wisconsin job. And, I remember talking to colleagues, you might've been one of them when it happened. I guess I didn't see the fit there, man. I just didn't see the fit. And I like Luke. I think Luke's talented. I think he's a talented coach. But then when you go in, you kind of try to change the culture really from the standpoint of what they were all about from an offensive standpoint. But they weren't happy with that with Paul Christ, who they got rid of and then hired Luke. They weren't happy with where they were, even though they played. Remember, they played for the Big Ten championship a couple times.
That's it, man.
That wasn't good enough. And so you bring in
be careful.
You bring in Luke Fickell, and he tries to really mold a team in what he wants to see them be offensively and stuff. And it didn't work. He's been through a few coordinators, et cetera. And now, like you just read off that remaining schedule, you just kind of go, will they be favored in any one of those games?
Not
perhaps Minnesota, perhaps, but I'm saying perhaps. I don't think so. So, wow, what a tough row. Meanwhile, Penn State, man, somebody texting me last night. What are you hearing about Urban? Is Urban interested in this job? And to be honest, I haven't texted with Urban. Urban doesn't seem like he'd be interested in that job. His triple option podcast he's part of during the week, he kind of ironed out the financial situation that Penn State is dealing with. That's just right. In getting rid of a coaching staff, because the new guy's got to have the right to bring in his own coaches. You may retain a couple, 3 guys, but I think Jim Knowles has a multi-year contract, for example, making $2.5-3 million a year. And then what they're paying James Franklin. So I think Urban pointed out that would be like a $70-80 million nut there when you talk about the old staff and then the new staff. That's a lot of money just be sitting around in a cookie jar somewhere. What's your cookie jar look like, by the way?
Cookie jar is good. Had a couple of setbacks last week, but the people who are handling it, I have full and faith and confidence, and they've really performed well. And I thought that was one of the better decisions that I've made in my lifetime. So the nest egg is matriculated.
Yeah, it's funny because I just imitated while you're talking, reaching into a cookie jar and there being nothing in there but crumbs.
No, I'm okay.
And crumbs, my friend, does not fuel a major college football program. So you got to think that Pat Kraft, the athletic director at Penn State, had been – obviously, he'd been thinking about this for a while. This was not a knee-jerk reaction. Over there, I think somebody has put forth, they do believe this was a unilateral decision on his part, but that I find it very hard to believe
I read that too.
That you get rid of your college football coach who's been there 11 years, going on 12, 11 seasons, going on 12, and you just do it yourself. There's no way that's the way it works, because when you can put that forth to the board of trustees or whomever your president, whomever you're answering to, but then you have to show them somehow the financial path you're going to take to pull this off. And that means more than one person is involved.
And who's next?
Yeah. Well, you brought up Kurt Cignetti. We brought him up the other day. He's from Pennsylvania. Wow, wouldn't he love to leave Indiana, where he's lost 2 games in 2 seasons, 0 games he's lost this year so far. And what was the update on that?
No, he's very appreciative and is even on the record on video saying, I'm so appreciative of the financial commitment that's been made here by athletic director, by president, by the board, everybody. When you get to a place and everybody's on the same page and you are producing, we've seen people do it, but I think he's going to be loyal to IU. Those may be famous last words, but at least today he says, I'll be staying at Indiana.
Let me tell you something.
Yeah.
You could call last year a fluke, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to. You can't call this year a fluke, what Indiana is doing. And
I agree.
Coming off the major, I didn't think it was major. I told you how I felt about Indiana. Now, going to Oregon is a tough task, but they dominated Oregon. So this idea that this was last year was a flash in the pan or a fluke, is not the case. They're not just playing well; they're playing on an elite level, and a lot of other schools are not doing that at this point.
No, and that's what makes Wisconsin's situation. It's just it just heaps on so much more. Hey, this guy did it, and they did it at Indiana, where success is just not happening over time. Like Wisconsin has had so much more success and Rose Bowls, et cetera, with Barry and others. So
where does Penn State go? So I heard this morning that there's a chance they might look at Dan Mullen, who's doing a hell of a job in his new digs after being on the shelf for a couple of years at UNLV. I mean, that team is playing now. That's UNLV, but Dan Mullen has big ties to Penn State in so many ways.
He's a Pennsylvania. I saw yesterday because I had heard his name thrown out there, kind of down on the list, and he said, "Do you want?" I saw this yesterday. He was at his presser. Do you want me to say it? He's like, "Do you want me to say it?" Yeah. I'll be at UNLV next season. Is that good enough? And sometimes these guys have to out and out lie.
Well, but I'm not going to call him a liar until he's a liar. But Nick Saban did the same thing when he was with the Miami Dolphins.
That's right.
So Nick Saban was a liar. He ended up at Alabama like everybody said he was going to. So we'll see where all this goes. I mean, there are so many candidates and then no candidates really, because when you think about it, how many active coaches have won national championships? I think it's Ryan Day and Kirby Smart, right?
I was going to say 3, but I think you're right.
Yeah.
Last night, you can find anything anywhere, I guess. But last night's little tidbit was that
by active coaches, I mean college coaches at the moment. Obviously, Jim Harbaugh won the national championship, and then Ohio State won it. And before that, Kirby Smart won 2 in a row.
Could you see Marcus Freeman leaving Notre Dame?
Well, here I heard that the other day, and I mean, yesterday actually. Whenever we're recording this, doesn't matter. We're in a top secret bunker.
We're in a timeless.
But we do have a skylight. But I mean, why would you leave Notre Dame to go to Penn State unless they made you money and everything? Definitely. Number 2.
Tim,
Penn State, people don't realize this unless you've been there. Penn State's sort of in the middle of nowhere.
It's
2 hours from Pittsburgh, pretty much 2 hours to 3 hours, 2.5, 3 hours to Philadelphia, an hour and a half to Harrisburg, at least the way I took one time, and it's got an airport that has runway restraints right on down the line. I mean, they fixed that a little bit, but my point is, when you had Joe Paterno there and he had that thing going, man, it was a destination. But is it a destination now?
Yeah, he owned the East Coast. To me, it's the Big Ten equivalent of Mississippi State, which is in the middle of nowhere as well, and a much, much smaller town. But just the whole, just the ag part of it, the creamery, there's
nothing wrong with good ice cream, man.
No,
I've been over there. It's an interesting little city, is what it is. State College, and then of course University Park.
It's fun. Yeah, I love
it. But it's gotten so expensive to stay over there when you're covering a game there or going there. I always stay in Altoona, which is southwest there. It's easy to get to with Interstate 99 now completed all the way up to Interstate, whatever that is that 80 going across the top of the state?
Bingo.
Towards Williamsport.
I just came home on 80 and started reliving how many times I stayed in Du Bois or Clearfield or whatever that was.
Clearfield.
Because there are so many little hamlets with a Hampton in them that we would, because Penn State charge what, $500 a room?
Dude, that's low.
So unless you're staying with the team, even the team though, they charge the team there. I mean, Ohio State started staying at this sort of a hotel next to a golf course out east of town, which I think is really nice. But before that, they were staying at a
Ramada or whatever it was, that was like,
Ancient.
its heyday was 45 or 50 years ago. And people say when they stayed at it then, it wasn't so heyday. But the bottom line is, it's a tough place to get to. It's a tough place to get out of after a game. I remember when I first went over and covered a game way back when, I think it was Iowa at Penn State way back in 81 or 82. And you had to go, 99 was not completed, and it ended up coming in from the southwest, and you had to go through this town called Port Matilda, which had one street light or one traffic light, which caught everybody.
I missed that.
Yeah, Port Matilda. Now Interstate 99 circumvents Port Matilda. But yeah, you had to want to be there and you had to want to stay. But I'll tell you what, the night before the game, I had a great time down there.
In Port Matilda?
Down there, right there in front of the campus, whatever the main drag is. I mean, every college town's got a great drag, main drag. Iowa City, we could talk about that forever. Madison is an interesting town to go to because it probably pound for pound has the best bars of any town in the Big Ten footprint.
I think I'm starting to think you need a chaperone in Madison.
Well, maybe back in the day I did, but now I don't.
Now you're good.
They've got made fun of the creamery. They got the dairy bar, but it's basically a great place to eat breakfast. But I had somebody talking to me this morning about, you can have a good time at the dairy bar. I go, no, I said, I don't go anywhere. You gotta wait an hour and a half to 2 hours to eat breakfast.
I've eaten there.
Scrambled eggs can only be cooked so many ways.
Well, the waffles are this big.
Yeah, I know, but I don't eat waffles that big anymore. How about you?
Right. Well, I still take
I'm not poo-pooing it. If you've never been to the dairy bar, go to the dairy bar. It's part of the lore,
mystique,
part of the tradition and the lore of going to a game at Madison Camp Randall Stadium. But you know what? Hey, we get into a little bit of that, or at least past games of covering Wisconsin. You and I stood there in the Woody Hayes Athletic Center, and we pre-recorded part of this show. And let's go ahead and move to that aspect. You want to do that?
Please.
Here we go, ladies and gentlemen.
Top of the day to you, and excited about game day on Saturday, no question about it. Tim May, Clay Hall, inside the Woody Hayes Athletic Center yet again, as we get ready, kind of set the scene, set the stage for Ohio State at Camp Randall, taking on the Wisconsin Badgers. It's been an interesting series over the years. Some great players have stood up, and certainly when Barry Alvarez had it going with Ron Dane, as you said, he had a pipeline to the East Coast.
Yep.
And he had some great backs. Monty Ball was another.
Ron Dane, but winning the Heisman, et cetera, that was maybe the peak of it all. When he had it really going down, those one couple of years. I remember Ron Dane coming in Ohio Stadium one time, and it was like he was wading through water against Ohio State's defense.
No question.
Yeah, it was quite impressive. And
it was.
Barry Alvarez kind of picked up and then carried on the tradition that Dave McClain started, who died suddenly of a heart attack way back in the mid '80s, and then they went through a couple of three coaches till they finally landed on Barry Alvarez. And I remember asking Barry Alvarez his first year at the Big Ten media luncheon, soiree, whatever you want to call it. These guys have basically failed. What tells you you've got the idea? What tells you you've got the plan that can get this turned around? And he said, well, basically, I'm paraphrasing, but kind of said, well, I guess we'll find out. And
we'll see.
Instead of sit down, smartass. Which would have probably drawn a standing ovation.
Right.
But I digress. Bottom line is, Barry Alvarez got it done. But since Barry Alvarez has left, we saw Brett Bielema and what he was able to accomplish there. Didn't quite get the brass ring. We got really close to it. Then he left for greener pastures at Arkansas. That didn't work out. And ended up in the NFL for a little bit and came back with the New England Patriots, came back, and now he's coaching at Illinois. That was the challenge Ohio State faced a week ago going into Illinois, which was smarting from that earlier season loss to Indiana. But Ohio State took care of business by 18 points, 34 to 16. Can Ohio State take care of business in this game? Mm-hmm. It sure looks like it. When you've got basically what's recognized as the best defense in the country,
going against a team that got beat 37-0 a week ago. You got to think Ohio State has a hell of a shot. But I remember going up there in 1984, first year I was the head beat writer for Ohio State for the Columbus Dispatch, covering Ohio State and the Buckeyes football team. And that team upset Ohio State there in Camp Randall, which wasn't as big, by the way. It wasn't as big a camp as it is now. But there were two things that happened in that game. Number one, Ohio State got upset. And number two, Keith Byers suffered a high ankle sprain on the last offensive play for Ohio State in that game when it became obvious they were going to lose. But he suffered a high ankle sprain. The next two games were against Northwestern and Indiana, not to be confused with this year's Indiana.
No.
Keith Byers would have had 200 yards by halftime in each of those games.
Wow.
Those hapless programs at that point. Instead, he got a big wrap on his leg and ended up coming back and playing in the win over Michigan, which propelled Ohio State to the Rose Bowl. But that high ankle sprain cost him the Heisman Trophy.
Oh,
because he was running away with it pretty much at that point. And then a guy named Doug Flutie for his final act threw a Hail Mary, which caught everybody's fancy, and he ended up winning the Heisman Trophy. And as Keith Byers has told me many times, he always reminds Doug Flutie, take care of my Heisman for me.
Yeah,
Right? But,
I like that.
It is what it
like
is. Sometimes it's just not meant to be.
Well, you got to have that moment.
Right, but this is an interesting time for Wisconsin, because you've talked to guys from up there, friends of yours too. It's Luke Fickell, man.
They're on. Yeah.
He got his baptism as a head coach at Ohio State in 2011 when he replaced Jim Trussell at the last minute being Labor Day, Memorial Day, way back when, and lasted one season as the head coach. He was always considered the interim head coach. And they brought in Urban Meyer. Luke Fickell worked for him for a while, then got the head coaching job at Cincinnati and did a hell of a job at Cincinnati. Agreed?
Off the charts. It's stunning to see what's happened. I never dreamed that Luke would struggle at Wisconsin, but he's changed a few things there. It's not the Alvarez blueprint with Ron Dane. It has changed a lot. And to watch his post game after the Iowa, he said, I'm dumbfounded. I don't know where, I don't know.
Well, you got to remember, he just, those post games, just like the post game with Ryan last year after the Michigan loss, the fourth straight loss to Michigan, he was stunned. You could see he was stunned. That was not what he expected to have happen, and definitely for a fourth straight year. Coaches, sometimes when you're talking to them after a game, you have to keep in your mind, hey, this guy just suffered a tremendous loss, no matter what the margin was. With Luke now, you got to figure, based on what happened at Penn State this week, them basically telling James Franklin, who's taken them so close to the promised land but couldn't get them there, with Luke Fickell right now, when the fans are booing you at home, that's a bad deal.
Oh,
and so now he's in a fight for his immediate, let's face it, head coaching career. Whether it pans out that way, his athletic director really likes him up there, but Pat Kraft really liked James Franklin at Penn State. But finally, more voices than yours come into play, and so whether Luke Fickell can muster the troops in this game for what would be a tremendous upset, at least in my opinion.
20-something points.
It would be tantamount to UCLA knocking off Penn State a couple of weeks ago. We all saw the snowball that started. But the point is, it would be on that measure. I'm not sure, when you're Ohio State and you're playing the way Ohio State's playing right now, which is pretty much straightforward football, just getting after you. The last two road trips, I thought they handled those extremely well, to Washington and then to Illinois. Now going into Camp Randall, they're not going there with their pup tents.
No.
They're not planning on being there more than 4 hours and taking care of business. So that's the challenge that Luke Fickell faces, his hapless offense so far going against maybe the best defense in the country.
Well, it's their third road game in 4, and Ryan really, zeroed in that part of the schedule. They felt like it was going to be a tough row, and so far so good. They just have to go take care of the Badgers, not give them any hope in this thing. It was interesting. Barry Alvarez has his own show up there. It looks like a podcast or radio, and he used the words unacceptable, and he's even.
But even Luke agrees. Luke agrees with that.
No question about it. No question about it. And he said you get your tail kicked enough times, you just feel like, hey, something's got to well up inside you and not take it anymore. So they may play really well and lose, but I think if he shows that this team's still fighting, that he hasn't lost the team, and they're not only want Luke out, it's the AD who, as you said, renewed him or extended him. And so, a lot of people feeling the pressure is what you're saying. No doubt about it. It is an interesting time we live in, though, isn't it, Clay, that coaches now are treated almost like commodities, meaning this is not working. I don't care what year it is of your rebuilding regime. How many years does it take to rebuild? See guys like Urban Meyer and Nick Saban, and some other guys. It kind of changed. Even Brett Bielema going back to Illinois and turning Illinois around. Illinois had been in the doldrums for a while, and boom, a couple of years, and he got them back to respectability. Kurt Cignetti goes into Indiana, and Indiana, the last several, like 10, 12 years, has been a respectable program, but not like this. No. But he showed, not 17-2. He showed that with a plan, and you go out and get some guys in the transfer portal that can really help you, those key guys, you can get it done in a year. You can definitely get it done in 2 years. And so that's the standard you're now being judged. And you know what? Times they change. That is the standard you should be judged by. As we talked with Kevin Griffin earlier this week on our show, and I brought it up with him afterwards after we got done videoing that segment. The thing about Ryan Day is I think Ryan Day has been blessed by becoming a head coach in 2019 and not 2009 or you know what I mean? I mean, as a young guy, because his tenure has been marked by these dramatic changes, and he wasn't ensconced in the idea you got to do it this way or it's not going to work. He wasn't ensconced in the Dabo Swinney can't use the transfer portal kind of thing. He is just as a modern, still youngish modern football coach has rolled with the punches and then tried to find the advantage he can gain in the new way of doing things, and that's a big difference. No, I would call him the greatest surfer in Big Ten football because he takes every wave. He doesn't lose it over, hey, that the game's changing. We got to do the best we can. We got to evaluate as it comes. He doesn't freak out. Yeah, he's been a rock in that sense. And again, some of these things are big waves. These are 10, 20-foot waves that are coming. Get up to the crest, man. See what it looks like from up there. Are you a surfer? No. We did. I can swim. Yeah, I can swim. We did body surfing a long time ago. I used to water ski. I did too. Water skiing and stuff. Well, that's not bad. But I'm not. I'm telling you, I don't want to get into this deal. I'll just say this: I don't like going into the ocean where there are things that not only can kill you but then eat you. I've never been big into that. But back to what you're talking about, the thing about Ryan Day are about riding the waves that are coming in, and like a surfer has to paddle back out and catch the next wave, no matter how good the previous one. They're not wakeboarding. Good Things point. Can be different. I mean, just like this transfer portal discussion we had earlier this week, the NCAA and its infinite wisdom, and God bless its soul, is just trying to figure out the ways still to try to make things as even as possible for everybody. And if that's the case, then go ahead. But ladies and gentlemen, this is such a totally different world than it was 6 years ago, and everybody knows that with the NIL opportunities, with now revenue sharing, where you can have what's in essence a salary structure for your football team based on how good players are, how good they've been, how good you think they can be. I mean, everybody's not making the same under the revenue sharing aspect of things. You may have, and I'm just throwing numbers out there, you may have a starting wide receiver making $150,000 or $200,000 a year just from the revenue sharing, and a backup third string guard who hadn't proven himself yet making $50,000 or $25,000. You just have to divvy it. You get your share, and you can divvy it any way you want. Now, those are just hypothetical numbers, but you've got to embrace all of that. To Luke Fickell's credit, they went out 2 years ago
and got Tyler Van Dyke, a transfer portal quarterback from Miami, who showed a lot of promise. Things were kind of changing at Miami, and boom, what does he do? Was it first quarter, late first quarter?
Wasn't long.
Gets a season-ending knee injury against Alabama.
Yeah.
Boom, there's the end of the Tyler Van Dyke thing.
Yeah.
And a place like Wisconsin doesn't necessarily have a big-time player behind him.
No.
Now that's what
exactly.
they're dealing with again this year with injuries, et cetera, in the quarterback room. So you've got that challenge going for you. But you're still being held to the standard that not only Barry Alvarez established, but other teams in the Big Ten have started to establish about there's no excuse for not being pretty damn good.
That's it. I've got this little cell up here, and it says Ryan Shazier, and
Wow.
I keep thinking of that flying
Punch out.
that he has incredible play.
Yeah.
And there
down at the goal line.
Yeah, and there were some great ones here. Demetrius Stanley this way. No, it's over here.
Yeah.
You recall that play.
Yeah. Brian Robisky.
Bingo.
Was it Brian Robisky caught the pass? Was it Robisky who caught the pass from Braxton Miller?
Was it here or there?
Here in the end zone. Remember, Russell was the Russell Wilson
It was
the
Devin
quarterback.
Smith.
Devin Smith. Russell Wilson. I thought it was Brian Robisky, but anyway,
He was rolling to his right.
Yeah, he's rolling to his right. Russell Wilson comes
Incredible
in,
finish.
is having a hell of a year, and then all of a sudden Ohio State pulls the upset. Should not have won that game,
No.
but found a way to win it,
Yeah.
which dovetails
Good
back
stuff.
to what we're talking about. You play the game, and then you pick up the pieces afterwards, no matter what.
There you go.
So Ohio State is playing at Camp Randall, which through the years has been a pretty tough place to play. The jump around is an interesting thing, but if 3/4 of your crowd has decided to go elsewhere to hit the bars in Madison, which are legendary, et cetera, the jump around this time might be Ohio State fans.
The first time you were up there in '84 and the press box began to sway.
Yeah,
Were you
they weren't
worried?
doing.
Were
I
you
don't think they
worried?
were doing the jump around then.
No, you're right. But
Yeah.
the first time I was there and it started, I mean, the concrete was moving.
Concrete and steel
Bingo.
and it still does that.
That stadium's older than.
Remember that video we did at the beginning of the year, the Clay May report when we first started, and I was walking home the camera. That's what it feels like.
And people weren't too high on that.
No, they weren't too high on that, but I don't care.
But the interaction was good. Anyway, but so we're going to get some insight here from some people up there, and you'll hear from Carson Hinzman too as well.
Absolutely, man. That's a good story. I mean, tell them about it. Just give them a precursor of what's coming.
Yeah, just that he was his mom, his family, all Badger fans. He would dress up for Halloween. I mean, he had it all. He was Badger all the way. His mom would she was an artist and she'd put things on the windows, and so that was his deal. And I think in many ways he thought, I'll be a Badger, and it didn't quite work out, and he'll explain why.
Yeah.
Coming up.
Yeah. I think he would say he made the right choice.
Indeed.
He was part and parcel and key to Ohio State's run to the national championship last year when he finally got back on the field after being in the doghouse for a while from the previous season. Even though he started every game of the regular season in the previous year, he came out of the doghouse running and biting and barking.
And Ryan Day gave Seth McLaughlin a lot of. He said kind of that he was his tutor, and he gleaned a lot from his mentorship or whatever it was.
Yeah.
But that brought him along, and now he's locked in. He calls the signals in many ways at that center position. So,
and
a good
son
stuff.
of a dairy farmer, a family of dairy farmers. You can't run into a more solid person than Carson Hinzman, and he's like what they call farm strong, man. He's one of those kind of dudes, and
No doubt.
he's part of that. I call it the nasty left side of the Ohio State offensive line. Well, at least half of him's on the left side, right?
That's right.
But I mean, him and Luke Montgomery and Austin Serveld, the right side guys are still sort of working toward the reputation, whatever you want to call him. Philip Daniels, he'll get after you, and then Tegra Shabola. Tegra Shabola could probably be meaner than he is, but he's definitely a nice dude. But so. We'll see if this offensive line comes even more to the fore in a game like this, playing at the place, which a lot of people thought kept up that tradition of big-time Big Ten offensive line play through the 90s and 2000s and stuff, right?
Yeah. So let's get ready to, have some fun, kick it off.
Absolutely. Have some fun and kick it off. And, you were sitting there the other night when Carson Hinzman related his recruitment, et cetera, and what it came down to. And, and obviously that was the previous staff at Wisconsin that was recruiting him, because it was the decision time was 2021, early 2022, whatever you want to call it, because he was a freshman at Ohio State, got redshirted in 2022. But you want to set this little video up before I roll it?
Yeah. Once he appeared, we have 3 or 4 players to talk to. And as soon as he sat down, and I think even Jerry or Mike Bassford said, Wisconsin native Carson Hinzman. and so everybody wanted to talk about
Everybody knew that anyway. Yeah.
Bingo.
Yeah.
But he's open about his certainly his adolescent love for the Badgers.
Yeah, absolutely. Just like, I grew up an Alabama fan because that's where I was born.
Sure.
You grew up a Mississippi State fan because your family got lost on its way to Alabama. I'm not sure what happened there.
My dad went to school there. That's where that.
We all dreamed of playing for that one school, till you got to be about 11 or 12, and the world was opened up to you. But hey, let's listen to Carson Hinzman talk about it.
Yep.
Like dressed up and stuff like that. And I dressed up as like a Wisconsin Badger fan my whole life. I always carried around a Wisconsin lunch pail like until I graduated high school. I mean, everything I had was Badger my whole life. So yeah.
How close did you?
I never got that far. No, I was like deathly afraid of mascots when I was a little kid. So loved them, but from a distance.
How close were you to going to Wisconsin?
Very close. I mean, I think, I kind of tell the story every now and then, but like, one night, like we were coming back, I think it was from like one of my sister's games or something like that. We were in the car and I was almost committed there. I was like, well, let's call him. And it was like really, really late or something like that. And I don't think Coach Rudolph answered at the time. Or I was like, maybe I'll think about it the next day. And the next day, I think we called him. I was like, I was just thinking about something or something like that. But then it kind of went on, thought about it more, and obviously committed here. So that was pretty close.
What was it that tipped it to Ohio State? On the goal line.
I think just the people, honestly. I mean, like, I was so used to, I thought just like, the culture down there was like the Wisconsin culture, obviously, like being tough, nobody cares, work harder, that kind of thing. And then you come here and you see something different, but it was different, but I think it almost felt more like home than Wisconsin did at the time. And obviously you want to be part of a winning culture, and that's what we had here. And if you want to be the best, you got to be able to play with the best. So I mean, that was a big pull.
Again, he made the right choice. I mean, I think if you took a poll right now, he might be the front runner for the Remington Award, which goes to the nation's top center. And that wouldn't be, obviously Seth McLaughlin won it last year, and he was at Ohio State, and he didn't even play the last 6 games of the year because he suffered that injury. And it was, still unbelievable. Tore his Achilles in practice, just, doing a drill. But
plug and play it, then they still win it.
But Carson Hinzman, man, I thought he played well in 2023 as a starter at center, and then he had the unfortunate thing, which we never have ever gotten a total clear story on why all of a sudden he didn't play against Missouri in the bowl game, and boy, they could have used him. Worst offensive line performance against a credible opponent that I can remember. For Ohio State,
it was ugly. And
everybody wanted to blame Devin Brown and Lincoln Keno, say they never had a chance. But I digress on that. But the bottom line is, that's the kind of guy that when you're the head coach and staff at a place like Wisconsin, and this is the guy in your backyard, you've got to get. But like I said, Luke Fickell wasn't there yet when that recruiting was going on, and because there aren't as many football players as you would think that are big time level in the state of Wisconsin, but they've always had some pretty decent offensive linemen, But now you look at this team right now. I'm talking about Wisconsin that Ohio State's going against on Saturday, and you're going, they don't even have that offensive line.
They have a D line that's decent.
But that's kind of like what you were talking about, Barry Alvarez talking about them. I'm paraphrasing now, but losing their way. I mean, they've lost their way. You've kind of got to be what you can be, meaning you've got to accept that there are maybe limitations on getting this guy or this guy or this guy, but there's hardly ever an excuse for not having a decent offensive line and a decent defensive line, but especially a decent offensive line. And just the Wisconsin offense last week, as I watched the video again of Iowa against Iowa, they're just in disarray. Now they're going against a really good defense in Iowa. That's like par for the course. But it's just when you think about those teams in the 90s with Ron Dane, and then the teams in the 2000s, Brett Bielema, when he was, they
moved people.
They kept that tradition. They moved people, but they also did a lot of zone block. They messed with your mind and they messed with you physically and mentally is what they did. And they had running backs that they ran that stretch play ad nauseum, and the running backs, they just had those running backs that would make them more often than not make the proper cut for 4, 6, 8, 10 yards at a pop. It seemed like on occasion, and it's like they're in search of themselves now offensively, and I'm not sure they're going to find it. That's why when we talk about Luke, now stranger things have happened. Not much stranger, but stranger things have happened. As we talked about, UCLA was considered maybe the worst offense in college football, at least for a Power 4 school, and they beat Jim Knowles and Penn State, a couple of weeks ago. So don't think anything's impossible, but it's crazy, right?
I think I'd be retaining Tim Skipper, I believe is his name.
But you got to watch that too, man. You got to.
Well,
you just because you
get the bump, the interim bump,
right? You always you either do or you don't,
right? It's usually
but then
really good or bad.
But then you've got to watch it. You've got to watch what he's not just how the team is playing. You've got to watch what's going on in the office, what's going on in recruiting. And granted, you're recruiting with a monkey on your back a little bit from the terms of, wait a minute, I'm talking this guy, is he even going to be there next year?
Right.
All the assistant coaches, is he even going to be there next year when you talk about an interim head coach? That's what Penn State, I understand Penn State, like we talked about earlier this week, I understand Penn State pulling the trigger when they did in terms of James Franklin, because they suddenly were not going to play for a Big Ten championship or in the college football playoff, barring calamity across the nation. And so you pull the trigger only because now you're in the line and you're the lead dog in the line. When you look at the programs that are looking for head coaches as we speak. So you've got that going for you. When you make a phone call to a coach's, when you make a nice list there, when you, I like how you highlight, you kind of make it artistic. Show the people again that the list. And by the way, the camera that works, that's the camera right there. That's a TV monitor you were holding it up to.
Well, there it is. And at some point,
keep holding that there.
At some point, Tim,
keep holding it there.
I wrote underneath there another great Ohio State offensive lineman who I was going to segue from Hinzman to Nick Mangold, and we'll talk about that maybe before we go.
Yeah, we'll definitely do that. But
I think we need to.
But the bottom line is, Penn State jumped to the front of that line of probable jobs that are the most alluring.
I'll move them to the top,
and we'll see where that one goes. But then. But it's funny. Now there's Ohio State, and Ohio State's not perfect, as we well know at this point. Offensively, there's still places they can go. Offensively, they haven't gotten to yet. Interesting that Ryan Day pointed out to a reporter this week that a couple of the considered backup wide receivers could see some action, or at least he didn't make any promise they would see action, or making progress, like Quincy Porter, one of my favorites.
You bet.
I just see him down the road, even this season, making some plays for this team. Ever since I've watched him, he was basically making the great, ridiculous catches, in the spring and even in preseason camp, a little bit that we got to watch. And what your ideal is, the guy doesn't have to make ridiculous circus catches. The ball's thrown right to you and you just catch it. And for some guys that's a challenge, but believe it or not, especially in a game. But there's so many places this offense can still get to, and one of those places, and I know this is a long about way of getting to the segue, but one of those places is in the running back situation, because they're running the ball fairly well right now. I don't think anybody can argue against that. As Ryan Daven pointed out, they've been effective in the sense of, for the most part, if you need 2 yards, you get 3. If you need 4 yards, you get 5 or 6. But even with Bo Jackson, he's flashed several times, but they haven't gotten that just, I don't know why my voice got, they haven't gotten that just breakaway home run, that
Right.
send the guy to the plate and let him swing away. Now, as Newt Rockne so famously put it, and by the way, speaking of a guy who patted himself on the back a lot, he never designed a play that couldn't go for a touchdown if it was perfectly executed. Now, okay. 4th and 1, when you're diving over the middle or you're doing the tush push or whatever, it's hard to imagine from the 48-yard line. It's hard to imagine that going all the way, right? Unless you got Lamar Jackson suddenly breaking free. But the point being, it's the offensive line's responsibility or the blocking's responsibility to get you as a running back to the second level. And then maybe you'll pick up a block or two where a guy's come off and gotten a block and you can come from behind that. But it's the running back's responsibility once you get to the second level to make a move or two that get you in the clear.
Bingo.
And we haven't seen any Ohio State back do that as a home run hit. And now closest was last week when Bo Jackson took that little swing pass out to the left, and you had Max Clare out there blocking for him, and he took it down the sideline and got inside the pylon for the touchdown. That in essence was a run play, but it was more of a 1-on-1 or 1-on-2. But he made, he beat a couple of guys to the spot and made the touchdown. But we're talking about home run hits like 40, 50, 70 yards to the end zone. And
and Buckeye Nation is sport. I mean, they've seen Beanie Wells go the distance. They've seen Clarett. They've seen Eddie
Jonathan
George.
Wells against
Wells.
Michigan way back in 2001.
That was one. Yeah, and he had a whale of a game. Even Antonio Pittman, 1 versus 2, when he took off for about a 45, 50-yard, boom, gone. And last year, you
don't see those every – I don't care who the running back is, though, with the exception maybe of Herschel Walker back in the day. Or anyway, I could name about 10 guys, but you don't see those every game, every week. But the point is, Ohio State 6 games into the season now. Now's the time for a home run ball, right? And now somebody's out there listening, going, "Well, wait a minute, what about those deep balls to Carnell Tate last week or a couple of weeks ago, or Jeremiah Smith?" I go, "Yeah, but those, there's a big difference between a big time pass play and a big time run play up the gut that just cuts the heart out of a defense."
Right. They've had the ones through the air, maybe not as many as, Ohio State fans want to see, but you're right. The running is still room for improvement there.
Yeah.
And a lot of green grass still out there to be had.
Artificial turf. I mean,
the rubber pellets.
Yeah, with the little rubber pellets in it. But anyway, hey, but I kind of asked Ryan Day kind of facetiously, is there anything wrong with this run game that a big home run wouldn't cure? And of course, that's, of course.
No,
but I mean,
but you want to see how.
But I just want to see what he says about it, because as I bring up to him, there's another coach here that one time kind of demanded it, and it happened. But let's just get to his response when I asked him that, because he knew exactly what I meant. Because it's kind of like when you cover the Indy 500, for example, from year to year. We have an old saying when you're sitting there. There's an old saying in racing: yellows breed more yellows, meaning you can have a race that's going on for like 50 laps. Nobody's had an accident or whatever. And then you'll have an accident. And the next thing you know, the next 30 laps, you have 10 crashes. You know what I mean? I mean, the same thing can happen with big time runs. And we've seen it happen before. But let's get to what Ryan had to say about that when yeah,
the running
tongue
game.
in cheek.
How much would the Eels be cured a little bit just to get a home run ball or two from these guys? I mean, remember back in the day when Urban was pressing for that, and boom, it finally happened. But just speak on that.
Yeah, no, that would be nice. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, well, yeah.
I know it would.
Yeah. No, you're right. It would be nice to hit a long run. We've been very efficient, but to your point, it's something that would be nice, and we have to keep working on that. And I think when you see the way that we're set up, there are the runs, and then there's like the perimeter, and the way that we're set up, that kind of goes hand in hand. But yeah, there's no rule saying that we can't break one of these runs for a big one.
And how close have you come, do you think? I mean, as you think back to the last few games, Bo seems to have really gotten really close. Have you seen it getting there, I guess?
Yeah. No, I first off, I think we're giving great effort. I think that we're continually trying to figure out how to put our guys in positions to be successful in those moments. We're not designing a ton of plays to just create explosives because, we feel like we can be efficient. But we do have some different things that we can get to as time goes on to try to create those things. But, a lot of our explosive plays typically come from our receivers. But to your point, yeah, I mean, we'd love to get, some of these runs into the secondary and create, explosives. I mean, that's the idea. But, efficient, yes. Explosive, not yet. And that's, again, what are we working on? That's certainly something that we're focused on.
Yeah. Bottom line is, of course, they'll take every big play they can get.
That's
right.
fine.
Number one. Number two. But, like I said, last week, Bo Jackson throw behind the line of scrimmage and out to the way out to the left flank. He takes it for a touchdown. Jeremiah Smith, as I recounted this story many times, I'm getting a text from Graham Rahal. What's wrong? What's wrong with the Buckeyes on offense? What's wrong? And I texted him back, nothing that getting the ball in the hands of number 4 wouldn't cure. And like a soothsayer, like a couple of seconds later, they run Jeremiah Smith on that little drag route. It was really behind the line of scrimmage, right along the line of scrimmage, much like that play they ran against Oregon for the first touchdown in the Rose Bowl. Jeremiah Smith, that's in essence a run play.
Throw it to him.
Although it goes down in Julian Sayan's passing yardage book and Jeremiah's receiving yardage book, but boom, and then he cuts it up, touchdown. Those are pretty big plays. Anything that goes to my point about it is a home run means you go to the end zone. I mean, you can have some long runs, but the home run takes it to the end zone, doesn't leave in doubt first and goal at the 4 or first and goal at the 9. It just makes you now, the defense has to worry about one more thing. And with this offense, as Ryan Day said, they're not going to forget that they've got 2 game breakers at wide receiver in Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate. Like I said, that's the one thing they've got in this offense. No one else in the nation has is 2 game breakers of that magnitude.
That duo.
Yeah. And, but boy, as Brian Hartline said at the beginning of the year, and other times, you got to have that run game you can lean on, man. Just like they had last year, especially in that 4-game run to the national championship. You've got to have that run game you can lean on, and will scare you.
That's it. It's a lethal weapon.
Yes,
just like the pass game is.
Yeah.
And so then what do you do as a defense,
right,
or as a coordinator? Oh man,
as a defensive coordinator,
here they go.
Dude, I mean, right now, I'm just looking forward. There's a couple of games you got to be looking forward to now down the road. I mean, Ohio State at Wisconsin is there. Like you said, Ohio State's a comfortable favorite if there's such a thing.
Yeah.
But Ohio State, Penn State, after Ohio State takes next week off, it's an off week, not a bye. You don't, a bye is what you get in a tournament, and you don't have to play that round. An off week means you get to rest, relax, which is what they don't do.
No.
But
improvement.
But then they play Penn State, and then I think Penn State goes back home, I think the very next week, and hosts Indiana.
Good luck.
And just 2 games. I know the luster is gone for Ohio State, Penn State in terms of the magnitude of 1 versus 2, which it could have been.
Well, which fans are hoping it's not a
3 weeks ago, it looked like it was going to be 1 versus 2.
For sure.
And now it's 1 versus who?
And maybe it's not in the noon slot is what I was getting to. Maybe
right. Who knows?
Maybe it's off the marquee.
but then Penn State goes back and plays Indiana, and Penn State, that's the thing. Penn State's dangerous because Penn State still got the same players it had when it lost in overtime to Oregon. Okay.
And do they?
Well, excuse me. No, they do not. Drew Aller is hurt and out for the year, so they don't have their starting quarterback. But my point is, everybody else on the field, for the most part, is going to be those same people that were held in high regard. Number 2 in the country in the Associated Press preseason poll, if memory serves me correctly. 1 was Texas, 2 was Penn State, 3 was Ohio State.
Right.
In that forgettable poll. But the bottom line is they're still lethal, man. I mean, think about UCLA when he made his coaching change, like we talked about a while ago. They weren't considered lethal, but they did have a playmaker at quarterback who was much ballyhooed a couple of years ago, Nico Iamaleava, who, if they ever figured out what suited him, they might be able to do some things. The last couple of weeks, they've been unstoppable for the most part.
They have.
That's hyperbole, but not too much.
Don't you think Penn State wants that Missouri quarterback back now? Well,
yeah, but you can't do anything about what has happened. But my point is, we're talking about a bigger crate of dynamite than maybe you would think Penn State would have based on what has happened the last 3 weeks. When in fact they lost the 2 games they lost were by slim margins.
True.
Number 1, number 2, but they have lost their quarterback. But, a lot of people were ripping on Drew Aller. I know I was one of them. I just didn't think he was that special guy that took you to the next level. We'll see. They've got a couple of guys in the running there right now. We'll see how they play. They have Iowa this week. I mean, talk about a game to keep your eye on. Iowa's coming off that 37-0 thumping of Wisconsin. And, do they see blood in the water or are we going to see Terry Smith and company over at Penn State get their act together? So my point is that's a game that can sneak up on you. A lot of people now are just taking Penn State for granted.
Right.
Wrong thing to do.
Right.
That'd be like taking, like I just said, UCLA is a great example. If a couple things you get straight that weren't straight and you get attitudes corrected, you can go places. And
love to see where they're going.
Yeah. Well,
UCLA.
Yeah. Periscope up. Let's check it out.
Hey.
There's another frigate. Let's get him. But yeah, anyway, so this season is far from over, I guess is what I'm saying. And to take Penn State for granted by Ohio State fans or even the team, I know they won't the team especially. They understand what's up. But, I've been impressed before we go. I've been impressed by Ohio State, by the way, it's taken the field so far this year. It took the field at the beginning of the year against Texas and played with a certain elan, a certain level. And on the road, the first couple of times this year, they played at a certain level. And, did they blow out Washington? No, but sort of. Did they blow out Illinois? Well, they were up 34-10 and gave up a touchdown. So 34-16, they beat a team they were favored by 14 over. They beat them by 18. That's a pretty good victory on the road, meaning I'm saying they showed up with their game face on.
Yeah, it's
both
a
of those.
score game.
Yeah. This is a 3:30 Eastern Daylight Saving Time game at Wisconsin this weekend. I expect Ohio State to show up ready to take care of business. What's your take?
Without question.
You're going, no, I don't. No, go ahead.
I do, but I just wanted to mention Nick Mangold, who's made public his health situation. He's on dialysis and he needs a kidney and he has O blood, and just wanted to throw that out there. I know a lot of people are disseminating his report, and he's just such a jolly fellow. I always loved being around him. Heck of a guy, heck of a pro career as well. And I think he's one of those Centerville Hawks, isn't he? Here's the thing about Nick too. I mean, big time player, even as a freshman at Ohio State, played that national championship game. One of the great young men I have run into
had the privilege of running into covering Ohio State football, because he was clever, he's smart, he can be funny. He likes to lean toward funny than he does super serious, but he can be.
That's why I said
he can
jolly.
be super serious. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I mean, I'm just. I mean, when he was with the New York Jets, I mean, he was creating his own brand. Because he knew football was going to be over sooner or later, and so he was busy creating his own brand
in the nation's number one media market.
There you go. And
he played it well.
But now, you know, he needs help. I mean, he's put out the call for a match for his kidney. He needs a kidney transplant desperately, like a lot of people. And there are a lot of people in line for those kind of things. But, you know, if you know somebody with O negative blood, you know, I think that's the first hurdle you have to go through, obviously.
You bet.
Then you move on from there. The funny thing about it is O negative is kind of a universal, right? Blood type.
Yeah.
But by universal, you know, because I think I have A negative, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And they can, either one of those can be used, I think, in transfusions. I may be wrong. I don't want to get, I'm sure I'm wrong, and somebody's yelling at me right now from a doctoral standpoint.
Dr. May.
But the bottom line is, he needs the help, and he's really put out the call to his former teammates, former friends in the New York Jets, former friends in the Ohio State football community, of which there are a legion. Oh. And so I think things will be taken care of. But
let's hope.
It is a sacrifice for somebody to give you one of their two good kidneys, because then they've got one.
Well,
you know,
great story here with the Blue Jackets.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. So. But yeah. But like I said, good luck to Nick Mangold. And if anybody can help him, you know, get in line, see what you can do. I know I posted his tweet a couple of times on my timeline, which you can check out. I may do it again.
Yeah, let's do it.
Definitely do it again, because why not? It's just Twitter. Right. I mean, put it up there 50 times.
You bet.
But anyway, I digress. I'm headed to Wisconsin to cover the Ohio State Wisconsin game. As if you're watching this and listening to this, I'm already there probably. Clay Hall is headed to his own Ponderosa.
That's right.
To contemplate life and get ready for next week's shows. But ladies and gentlemen, we totally appreciate you tuning in and listening to two veteran codgers. I was going to say codgers, two veteran observers,
recipients,
two veteran. Thank God for Medicare. Although I don't know what's Medicare going to look like in a couple of years, but that's a story for another day. I've already talked too much doctorally, but two veteran observers of the scene. Until next week, we'll see you then.